wonderful holiday dinner that has all the classic flavors, but you're not going to be slaving away. We're going to make it quick and easy and a lot of fun. So let's start. We're going to start with our tofu mock turkey. So I've prepared my pan. I have a springform pan. Now if you don't have a springform pan, you can use a lovely fluted pan, not something with a lot of decoration because you want it to be able to come out easy. So I've lined my pan with a little bit of parchment to make it release easy. And also I'm just going to take a little bit of some very nice vegetable oil and rub the sides just to give it a little easier release. And never too much. So we're going to just do that, a little on top of the parchment. Okay. Now, I have here mashed tofu. You can finger mash it, you can potato mash it, but it's tofu that's, I have a nice organic fresh tofu made here in Hawaii, and I put in a little bit of poultry seasoning, a little bit of Bragg's amino, and some nutritional yeast, and that'll give it that yummy flavor. So we're just going to put it into our pan. Now we're going to line our pan with it because we want to leave room for our stuffing, our dressing. Some people call it stuffing, some people call it dressing. I call it yummy because that was always my favorite part of the holiday dinners. So I'm just putting this in. And you want to make sure that you reserve enough for the top. Now if you have a large pan, you can a little more tofu. A smaller pan, you can decrease the amount you're using. And truthfully, sometimes it really works easier with your hands. Okay. Now you can see that our pan is all built up with the tofu. Then I'm going to put in my stuffing. Now the stuffing is very simple. I make my stuffing a little wet because I like it that way. You can make it dry. My stuffing is very simple. I used a nice vegetable bouillon with some celery, a little celery seed, and the bread cubes. So I'm using a good amount because I have a large pan. So you just adjust the amounts. And one thing we always did during the holidays is my mother made extras and put it on the side. So there was plenty of stuffing, which everybody loved. So just spread that evenly. And then we're going to top it with the last bit of our reserved tofu mixture that we saved, our savory tofu mixture. Just going to cover this. And then I just make sure that all your stuffing is covered and that you have an even layer of tofu on the top. And that's it. Our tofu turkey is ready to pop into the oven. Take it over. You can bake it anywhere between 350 and 365, just depending on, everybody's oven is a little bit different. So I'm going to take this over and put it in our oven. And then of course, by the magic of TV, voila. So when you put it in, you'll bake it and you'll see the top will turn brown. So then what you want to do is you release the tofu turkey. And the second step, which I've already done, is you flip it out onto a baking sheet and put it back in the oven so the rest of the sides brown. And everything actually inside is already cooked, so you just want to cook it long enough for the outside to get brown. I'm going to decorate it. I reserved a little bit of cranberry for the top. just going to put a little sprig or two of parsley around just to give it an elegant presentation. So here we have our lovely finished tofu turkey. Beautiful and delicious, and the best part, it was really quick and easy to make. Of course you want gravy, so I'm going to make a really different gravy today. Now usually a gravy starts with a roux where you have oil and flour and then you add to that. Today we're going to do it without oil, without flour. I'm going to use a wonderful ingredient, cashew butter. So I have a raw cashew butter, and then to give it that real traditional gravy flavor, I'm going to add a little bit of our poultry seasoning, also some Bragg's to give it a little bit of a salty taste. And then the thing that I found is the difference between it really tasting like gravy and a sauce is that little bit of fresh ground black pepper. So I'm going to add that at the end, and that will really give it that lovely gravy flavor. So I'm going to start with a pot of boiling water. Almost boiling, that'll be fine. We basically want it to start to melt and soften our cashew butter here. So I'm going to add the cashew butter to the water and just start to melt it in. The cashew butter is not as oily as some of the other butters, so you want to have it melt a little bit into the water. So I'm going to add a little bit of our poultry seasoning. You want to be careful with poultry seasoning. It has such a wonderful, rich flavor. If you use a little too much, the sage can be a little bitter. So then I'm going to add the Bragg's to that. And you can also, if you don't have Bragg's, which is a really great staple, you can have like a vegetable bouillon, like a really nice vegetable bouillon also is a great flavor to put into your water. So we're just going to let this cook, and I'm going to stir it. And the neat thing about the cashew butter, you're going to say this looks like soup or water, but as it cooks and you stir in the cashew butter, it really starts to thicken nicely and turns into a lovely gravy. And if you want it thicker, you can always add a little more cashew butter. If you like it thinner, you can add a little more water. I'm going to add some of my fresh ground black pepper. Pour it into our beautiful gravy bowl. So now you can see we have a lovely gravy to go with our beautiful tofu turkey. Let me have a little pinch of parsley just to drop on there. So presentation is always nice, and simple things also really create an elegance. So here you have the tofu turkey and a gravy to accompaniment that is not only healthy and delicious, made like that. So, okay, to accompany our wonderful holiday dinner, I'm making a ginger maple carrot with a pop of cranberries, some sun-dried cranberries. And I have a little story about this. So I was doing an event on Maui, and the host was saying, oh, thank you. I said, well, did you try my carrots? And he's like, I don't eat carrots. I'm like, no, you have to try my carrots. He's like, I don't eat carrots. I said, you have to try my carrots. So he did. And he said, I love your carrots. I said, I've never loved carrots before. I said, yes. So anyway, he said, how are you getting back to Oahu? And I said, well, I have an airline ticket. And he said, no, you're going to fly back in my plane. So I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. So before we landed, he said, you can't get off the plane unless you promise to continue making me cranberry carrots. So that's the story of my cranberry carrots. So what I've done is I've started my carrots boiling. You want to make them cooked but firm. And what I do is I cut the carrots in sort of a little bit of a half moon or a diagonal slice, just to give them a little more design, a little more interesting for presentation. So right before I'm done with the carrot steaming, I add my sun-dried cranberries. And the reason I do that is I like to plump them up a little. So we've got our, just give them a moment and they'll absorb a little bit of the moisture and plump up. Now, I have a frying pan here, and I like to use a non-stick because it helps. I'm going to be caramelizing some maple. So for this I have some maple I'm going to add into the pan. And then have a little bit of fresh grated ginger here. You can add more or less if you want it to be a little spicy. You can add more if you want it mild or less. It's all about your taste buds. I like that little zing of ginger, so I'm going to add the ginger. Just going to stir these together. And the maple will start to heat up and caramelize a little, and the ginger will infuse into the maple. So what I'm going to do is just going to take the carrots out that are all steamed and ready to go. And the carrots you can cut ahead, like all things, you can make this a day ahead if you like. The carrots can be cut ahead even. So I'm going to just add those into my maple ginger solution. Drain out the water. And you can see that beautiful orange with those little bursts of the cranberry, little red burst of cranberries, quite festive. And while we're doing that, not to lose a moment of our quick and easy holiday dinner, I'm going to make a tropical cranberry sauce. So I've started with an organic, and with this one, I grew up with jelly cranberry and I always like that, but it's so much nicer to have the whole cranberry. It just gives it more texture. So we've got the cranberry. I'm going to add, I cut some fresh pineapple. Add that. And some fresh squeezed orange juice. And cut a little bit of the sweetness and adding some orange zest, which will give it a strong flavor. Just cut a little bit of that sweetness. Stir these ingredients together. It's nice to change up or have a little bit of a surprise element for your guest when they come, that you're going to have this year a tropical cranberry sauce. So now our carrots, you can see, are starting to bubble and cook inside with the maple and the ginger. So we're just going to cook these for a few more minutes as the maple reduces and coats up the cranberries. Cranberry carrots with their ginger maple sauce, lovely pop of color, and our cranberry tropical pineapple cranberry sauce. So those are nice dishes to accompany the tofu turkey and the gravy that we already made. Now this is everybody's favorite part, dessert. The moment you're waiting for all through the meal. What are we going to have? So this year we're not going to have pumpkin pie, but we're going to do something with pumpkin that's even more delicious, simple, and elegant. So I'm going to start out showing you how I'm going to make the topping for my pumpkin parfait. Once again, using some maple syrup. Just going to heat that up with some oats and some pecans. So we're going to just cook this till it turns into a little bit of a toffee. So we're going to top our dessert with our toffee, our pecan oat toffee. So it's sort of a parfait mousse crunch. Just going to let this cook for a few minutes. It's kind of turn into a candy topping. And you can see as you take your spoon across the bottom of the pan, you can see it leaves a line. And that line means that your maple syrup is almost to the candy stage. So just a few more minutes. And then what I have is I put a little bit of parchment paper down because we want this to, right now it's soft and sticky, but as it dries it will get hard and turn into a really nice brittle. It's much easier to work with the brittle from a piece of parchment paper. It's not sticky. Okay, so now to assemble our parfait. Got a beautiful crystal glass, and you can use any kind of glass you want. You can use a wine glass, but this is such a lovely fluted glass. So we're going to start with, and I've already made a little bit of crunch, so it's already ready. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in the bottom of my glass because it's always fun to have your last bite be a sweet nugget. So we're just going to layer this. Now this is a pumpkin pudding. I started out with an organic pumpkin pie mix. I added some almond milk, or you can add coconut milk, any kind of milk that you like to use as opposed to a cow's milk. You can use a almond, soy, coconut. Today I used an almond, but you might have somebody with an allergy. So that and a little bit of cornstarch. And when you start with the pumpkin pie mix, it already is sweetened and spiced. But if you get just canned pumpkin, you can add a little sweetener. I like to use maple, and as you've noticed. And then we're going to layer now. This is my whipped cream, and I'm going to put a little bit more crunch in here. A little bit of crunch on every layer. So this whipped cream, which is just wonderful, this is coconut cream. So what I did was I got coconut cream, not coconut milk, and I chilled it and put a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of sweetener, and then just whipped it like you would regular whipping cream, and it came out, as you can see, very dense and fluffy. Pudding topping. Layer this out. A little bit more of our crunch. Final layer of whipped cream. Can't have too much whipping cream. And just a little bit of the brittle on top. Now that looks like a delicious, elegant dessert. Have a lovely holiday. Thank you for joining us in our Aloha holiday today, and I'm Chef Madana. Aloha!